a busy Thursday, top of the hour on NBC News Now. We start with the active scene right now in Michigan, and we now know a driver rammed his car through the doors of a synagogue. Two sources tell us the suspect is dead. Police expected to provide a new update, and we will bring that to you live as soon as it happens. Also new to us, new why investigators are now treating a shooting at a Virginia college as an act of terrorism. The new details we're just now getting about that suspect. Plus, why President Trump is warning Iran's soccer team to stay away from the World Cup, which will take place here in the U.S. this summer. The steps FIFA may now take and need to take to replace the Iranian team. And then the Artemis mission around the moon is a go. How NASA's new timeline may set up the next phase of the space race and eventually to the moon. And why one lawsuit against a popular energy bar claims protein isn't the only thing you'll be maxing out on. The new response from David, the company, later in the newscast. Good day, I'm Tom Costello in for Hallie. As we said, a busy day. We come on the air with breaking news out of Michigan, where we are learning the suspect behind an attack on a Michigan synagogue is in fact dead. That according to two senior law enforcement authorities, with police and the FBI expected to give us another update in the next hour or so. Video captured police and the fire department surrounding Temple Israel in West Bloomfield, Michigan earlier today, where the sheriff says a suspect rammed a car through the Temple's doors and then drove down the hallway. The sheriff says Temple security engaged that suspect and shot at the car, and you can see smoke coming out of the building after something ignited inside that car, catching fire. The suspect was found dead in the vehicle. It's still unclear exactly how he was killed. Nobody else died in the attack. One security guard was hit by the car, taken to the hospital, but is expected to be okay. And no one inside, including children or staff, were injured. The president, just in the last hour, sending his support to the community.
I want to send our love to the Michigan Jewish community and all of the people in Detroit area following the attack on the Jewish synagogue early today. It's a terrible thing, but it goes on. We're going to be right down to the bottom of it.
Well, there still is a lot to get to the bottom of, including how exactly the suspect was killed, what caused the car to catch fire inside that synagogue or the building, as bomb-sniffing dogs and technicians are still searching that vehicle for explosives. And the big one, what was the motive? We have team coverage on this, as you would expect, standing by. NBC's Tom Winter is covering the investigation. We want to start, though, with Valerie Castro. Valerie, what's the latest? What are we learning about the situation at the Temple right now?
Well, Tom, we know this temple was home to a daycare or preschool center there, and we know now that all the children inside the temple are safe. The temple released a statement earlier this afternoon saying that, "Dear Temple Israel family, everyone is safe." All 140 students in our Susan and Harold Loss Early Childhood Center, our amazing staff, our courageous teachers, and our heroic security personnel are all accounted for and safe. It goes on to say that the gunman was confronted and neutralized by our security personnel, who are truly heroes. We know that everyone was evacuated from the building and they were later reunited with family members at the local JCC. As for the ongoing investigation at the scene, as you mentioned, there are bomb-sniffing dogs there, according to the local sheriff, who says that the vehicle rammed the building. It went down the hallway, and that's where the person driving the vehicle was met by armed security guards who fired at the vehicle, and then something ignited. There was some sort of fire. You see the smoke there on your screen. And so the sheriff's saying now that they are investigating inside to check for any explosives in that vehicle to be able to clear the scene. And as far as the suspect in this case, the sheriff says that person remains inside the vehicle, inside the building. Tom?
And Valerie, what are we learning from the community there? People are now reuniting with their children and their loved ones. Are most people all now reunited?
As far as the sheriff has told us, we know that everyone has been reunited. Again, they were all evacuated to the local JCC. And as you can imagine, in the first minutes of this incident happening, as the news began to spread in that community, this is a well-known congregation of some 3,000 families. People began to go to the scene to see what was going on, panicked and fearful for what might be happening to friends and family members there. So take a listen to what one community member said to our affiliate reporter from WDIV there earlier today.
What's going through your mind?
I'm scared to death for my friends. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen this kind of, this number of police officers out here. And my first thing, to be honest, were the children. There's a whole, daycare program in there, and parents and grandparents have been coming, and they're scared to death for their children.
Tom, we know according to that statement from the temple, they say the teachers and staff, they did what they were trained to do in a situation like this. They were able to get everyone out safely. And again, as far as we know tonight, everyone reunited with their family members. Tom.
Good news there and a fast response. Valerie, thank you. Let's go to NBC's Tom Winter, who covers law enforcement. Tom, what else are you learning about how the suspect was killed and then what actually went down inside the temple?
Yeah, Tom, I think there's going to be significant updates in the next hour or so as they continue to piece together who's responsible for this incident at the temple, particularly as it pertains to potential motive here. And I know you and I will discuss that. As far as what happened inside of the temple, it appears that this individual drove their truck through the front entrance, was confronted by armed security guards who fired upon that individual. The car comes to the stop, and it's actually in the school portion of Temple Israel. And then after that, all of a sudden there is a significant fire, and it's a fire that goes beyond any sort of a car fire. You're looking at the video there. If we look in the middle of the screen, you'll see the dark smoke coming out. That's apparently where the truck comes to rest. So it made a decent way down the hallway in that school, and that's why the bomb squad's there. They're really concerned about what's inside of that truck. Probably not going to be a bomb, but more of some sort of an incendiary device or maybe something triggered by fireworks. Of course, we saw something like that play out in front of the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas a couple of years ago. So just to give people a sense of what those types of things can do as far as generating fire, they're going to look at that. And that's, of course, made it difficult to identify this suspect. But certainly this synagogue and this facility, who had just gone through an active shooter training with the FBI Detroit field office, acutely aware of the threats the Jewish community faces.
Yeah, Tom, a lot of times synagogues and temples, certainly here in the D.C. area, they have off-duty law enforcement, police officers who serve as security. So I'm wondering if that's who was providing security. And then secondarily, do we know anything more about any potential motive here as this attack rattles the Jewish community, not just in Michigan, but really across the country?
Yeah, across the country, and we've seen obviously a significant uptick in anti-Semitism in this country, both charged and just the sort of the general environment that we see online. As far as the motive here and what could be behind that, I suspect we're going to hear a lot more at 6 p.m. Eastern time when the FBI and local authorities give a briefing. The fact the FBI announced it tells me that they are leaning towards this being a federal crime. It could certainly be something that has to do with hate. It could certainly be something that has to do with terrorism. Obviously, in the Dearborn area, there was a story that we broke several months ago about a significant terror plot, ISIS-related, that was disrupted in the general Detroit area. That's an area that we focus on because there's been a lot of significant terrorism cases that have come out of that part of the country. So we're going to focus on that. But then you have the whole element of what these Jewish houses of worship are facing. And we had a statement today from the local Jewish community saying, look, we've got this huge security presence. We had to lock down everybody. Fortunately, the lockdown protocol is no longer in effect, Tom, but it just shows the fact that the elaborate security apparatuses these institutions have to have because obviously the heightened threat that they face.
And the threat is real. Tom Winter, thank you for that. We have more breaking news at this hour out of Virginia, where we're just now learning that the gunman who killed one person and injured two others at Old Dominion University had previously been convicted of providing material support to ISIS. So here is the scene on campus after the attack. The gunman was killed in the shooting. The FBI director says it will be investigated as an act of terrorism. The identities of the victims have not been released. It comes as authorities are also investigating an ISIS-inspired attempted attack earlier in the week at Gracie Mansion in New York. NBC's Ryan Riley is following this story for us in this investigation. What have you learned so far?
Yeah, so as our colleague Tom Winter actually first reported, the FBI has now confirmed the identity of this individual gunman as Mohammed Jola. What we know about this individual is they actually convicted in a completely separate case 10 years ago, right? So back in 2016, they're arrested in connection with this FBI bust of involving support for ISIS. And in that case, what the authorities allege is that this individual bought a gun and was part of a plot to kill kill members of the military. So while we do not, the authorities have not yet spoken as to the official motive, we know that he was associated with ISIS in the past and admitted to that in conjunction with that case, and that was allegedly part of a plot to kill members of the military. He ultimately got 11 years in prison, and he was released in 2024. And if viewers are trying to do the math on that, the reason for that is because you have to do at least 85% of your time behind bars under federal law. So that actually makes sense that if you're sentenced to 11 years, if you get credit for time served and you were arrested in 2016, that you would get out around the end of 2024. But he was still on computer monitoring as well as on probation for 5 years. And so that, I think, is going to be the real question here, is how close was that monitoring? Was he in a halfway house at this point? We're not entirely clear on that. So there's still a lot of questions. And of course, how did he get the gun? That's the big question. If you have a conviction in your past, you can't just go to the local gun store and pick up a weapon. So the question of how he obtained that weapon, I think, is going to be one that law enforcement are going to be looking at closely.
And again, he was killed.
Was killed on the scene, yes.
Brian Riley, thank you very much for that. Iran's new supreme leader is defying President Trump and promising not to back down on demands to de-escalate the war. That is the new Ayatollah right there. His statement was read aloud by state media. The big headline here, Iran plans to keep a key oil shipping route closed. That only to attack any ship allied with the U.S. or Israel that passes through the Strait of Hormuz, which handles a fifth of the world's oil supply. And you can see right there burning just off the coast, at least one ship. Iran also says it will keep attacking U.S. assets in the region, like the plumes of smoke you see near the U.S. consulate and also at an airport in Iraq. It also now promises not to hit civilian targets in the Gulf. But you see here drones strikes throughout the region, including a hotel in the UAE. It's happening as Israel and Hezbollah are trading strikes in Lebanon, forcing hundreds of thousands of families to flee. This war is exacting a punishing death toll, I should say, barely 2 weeks in. Here are the numbers. At least 1,200 dead in Iran, at least 680 in Lebanon, 31 in Iraq, 13 in Israel, more than 20 across various other nations, along with 7 U.S. service members. We'll take a look at the economic impact in a moment. We want to start, though, in the region. NBC's Richard Engel is in Haifa near the border, the Israeli border with Lebanon. Richard, we're just now learning from the Israeli prime minister that a new wave of strikes in Tehran is underway. Is Israel also expanding its operations in Lebanon?
It is absolutely expanding its operations in Lebanon and is threatening to expand them considerably further. So we're talking about 2 fronts of wars that are intimately connected. So in Lebanon, we'll talk about that one first. So Lebanon is a country that is deeply divided politically, in many other ways. It is ethnically divided, religiously divided, and Hezbollah is a militia group backed by Iran. It has a great amount of influence in southern Lebanon. It has a great amount of influence. It has a headquarters in southern Beirut. And Israel is attacking in southern Lebanon, is attacking in South Beirut. It is also attacking in the center of Beirut. About 800,000 people have been displaced in Lebanon so far because of this violence between this escalating war between Hezbollah and Israel. There are also Israeli ground troops inside southern Lebanon. And Israel's defense minister said today, after Iran and Hezbollah coordinated an attack against Israel last night, firing more than 100 rockets from Lebanon at areas around me and in central Israel, the defense minister said that Israeli troops could potentially take even more territory in Lebanon. So that is one front to watch, and to watch very closely. In terms of Iran, Prime Minister Netanyahu outlined many goals. He said that the regime in Iran is severely weakened. He talked about the rationale for going to the war. He said that Iran had been warned not to attempt to rebuild its nuclear program. He claimed that Iran was in the process of rebuilding it. That's why the United States and Israel carried out this war. He also made a veiled threat at the Hezbollah leader and the new supreme leader of Iran, saying that he wouldn't recommend anyone issuing life insurance policies for either one of them. And you'd mentioned that statement from the new supreme leader, which was a written statement read on Iranian state television. But the Supreme Leader himself, the son of the former Supreme Leader who was assassinated by the U.S. and Israel, he didn't appear on camera, nor could his voice be heard.
Interesting. Let's talk about your interview with Benny Gantz, the former Israeli defense minister, now a top political rival to the prime minister. We want to play a little bit of that fascinating interview.
Do you think that Israel and the United States, this partnership, can last that long, can survive this economic shock?
It should. And when I'm saying it should, it's, of course, it is being led by the United States, and I think we should convey appreciation for this very strategic decision by President Trump to move ahead with that.
So, Richard, how does Gantz see the war right now, both in the short term and the long term?
Well, he told me he thinks this war could last longer than both Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump are describing. President Trump has said that the war is effectively over, that the military objectives were achieved, but not all of them are achieved, and that the mission isn't quite finished yet. So an end state that is still quite unclear. President Trump has talked about a few weeks, and then he's talking about more than a few weeks. So the time frame and the ultimate end state of this war remain quite unclear. But Benny Gantz, who, as you mentioned, is a rival to Prime Minister Netanyahu, but the two of them have put their rivalry aside, at least publicly now, and are on a united front during this current conflict. They don't want to be seen as fighting each other at a wartime. He thinks it could take considerably longer because the ultimate goal, he thinks, is to remove the Islamic revolutionary system that has ruled Iran since 1979.
Richard Engel, thank you very much. Good reporting, as always. Let's go to NBC's Hallie Canal, who joins us. And Hallie, Energy Secretary Chris Wright was asked about when the Navy might start protecting oil tankers passing through the Strait of Hormuz. Let's play a little bit of that.
It'll happen relatively soon, but it can't happen now. We're simply not ready. All of our military assets right now are focused on destroying Iran's offensive capabilities and the manufacturing industry that supplies their offensive capabilities.
So we know the White House is also considering suspending the century-old shipping law, but are these just short-term solutions for what may end up being a very long-term problem?
Yeah, Tom, in many ways, yes, because of the sheer supply that's at stake here. We heard from the International Energy Agency, made up of 32 member countries, including the U.S. They've pledged to release 400 million barrels of strategic oil reserves, the U.S. contributing about 172 million to that total. But this isn't going to happen all at once. It's going to take time, a period of around 4 months. That's why you are still seeing this pressure on oil. At the same time, you're seeing the White House come out with all these possible measures. They're weighing suspending the Jones Act. Now, this is that law that requires fuel moving between U.S. ports to travel on U.S.-built and U.S.-manned ships. So by suspending that, it would allow foreign tankers to move that fuel between American ports to prevent some of those shortages. But in many ways, this is just putting a Band-Aid on a much larger issue. It's not going to fully stop the bleeding. A lot of experts out there say we need that safe travel, the safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz so that we can start to get those barrels moving. Because if you do the math on what the IEA is proposing, that's about 1.4 million barrels a day. Prior to this conflict, we were shipping 15 to 20 million barrels through the Strait. So, you know, this is just going to be something that takes a bit of time.
Yeah, and a bit of a drop in the barrel there. Listen, we want to read this new memo that caught our team's attention today. It's from Wells Fargo. Here's what they say. Economists at the bank write, even with risk rising because of the war, quote, the reality is the U.S. economy is less sensitive to higher energy prices than it once was. But any risk is key here. And it's not something the gatekeepers of the economy are big fans of at all.
Yeah, and that note alluding to the fact that we produce a lot more of our own energy than we did in years past. So an oil shock like this doesn't hurt us at the margin as much as maybe it did decades ago. But look, oil shocks like this still contributes to those higher prices at the pump. We've seen a significant rise in gas prices. It feeds in to inflation. Already you're seeing markets just price in one rate cut from the Federal Reserve due to this inflation spike. There are some economists out there that are saying saying we could see no rate cuts. That obviously contributes to the affordability issues that Americans are facing as well, Tom. So a ripple effect, of course.
Hallie Canal, thank you very much. All right, well, tonight, high winds and severe storms are putting about 88 million people from the Northwest to the Great Lakes under wind alerts. That's leaving deadly road conditions in some places. High winds rolled a semi-truck over in Colorado. A lot of dust flying through the air there, as you can see. And at least one person is dead in Washington state after dangerous winds brought down a tree there. It's also causing some fire risk out west. Small brush fires popping up in Wyoming and Colorado. Fort Collins fire teams say this one is mostly under control right now. It all comes as cleanup efforts are still underway across some of the Midwest after those deadly tornadoes we've been talking about, and more damage overnight in spots like Louisiana and Mississippi, where storms made a mess of the roads there. We want to bring in our meteorologist, who else? The one and only Bill Cairns. Bill, it's not just the wind threat that's significant here, right? We're also seeing a ground stop at some airports because of the storms. What should we be watching for?
Yeah, Tom, March is known for these wild weather swings, but this has been pretty extreme. Let's just start on the East Coast, where yesterday it was 89 degrees in Richmond. This afternoon, at one point, they were reporting 33 degrees and heavy snow. So even by, like, mid-Atlantic standards, this has been a wild ride. Temperature now in D.C. is 45 degrees colder right now than it was at this time yesterday. But all that weather is ending. All the severe weather threat is done. But the damaging wind threat continues. We have a new wildfire that has started in Nebraska. There are some evacuations, and the winds have been extreme through this area today. We've had wind gusts to 80 to 85 miles per hour in areas coming out of Wyoming. And as we go throughout the night, we're still going to see 40, 50 mile per hour winds. Casper, maybe even as high as up to 70. So once this windstorm kind of dies off tonight, we start watching our next storm. This is going to be a powerful snowstorm, most likely a blizzard. And unfortunately, it's right over the top of our friends in Wisconsin. That's kind of the bullseye of it, but even areas of Iowa could get it too. Some areas could get over 3 feet of snow by the time we get towards, Tuesday to Wednesday of next week, Tom. So some of this is going to hit Milwaukee and Chicago also. And then all next week, we're going to talk about this crazy heat wave in the West. We are talking about temperatures that'll be hotter than we've ever seen in March. Phoenix, Tom, has only hit 100 once in March. They're going to do it at least 4 days in a row. I mean, yeah, we'll talk more about this next week.
3 feet of snow where?
Wisconsin.
I'm sorry for those folks.
I know, it's bad.
Jeez. All right, Bill Cairns, thanks very much. A landmark trial against the world's biggest social media companies is coming to a close in L.A. right now as arguments wrap up in a case that will decide if YouTube and Meta are liable for harming children and teens addicted to the apps. At the center of the case, a 20-year-old, only ID'd by her initials KGM, or Kaylee, and you see her walking into court today on the right. We're concealing her face to hide her identity. Her lawyer today accused these media giants, social media giants, of really changing the trajectory of her life by seriously harming her mental health. And attorneys for both companies say that's not true, that they weren't designed to or operate to hurt people. TikTok and Snapchat, I should say, were also initially named in the suit but decided to settle. The jury is expected to start deliberating tomorrow morning. NBC's Brian Chung is joining us now. You got everybody talking about this one, Brian. Walk us through what happens here next. What sort of precedent would this set if these companies are, in fact, held liable?
Yeah, Tom, we've been talking about this story for about the last month or so, and now here we are in closing arguments. This is going to tee up the jury for what could be a massive verdict here. Right now, we are currently hearing from the defendants, again, Meta and also YouTube. As you pointed out, Snapchat and TikTok did settle prior to all of this beginning. But again, here are the instructions for the jury as read to them by the judge earlier this morning. First off, did the defendant know or reasonably should have known the design of the platform was going to be dangerous or likely to be dangerous when used by a minor? And then another one that's really key to point out here is whether or not the defendant knew or reasonably should have known that users would not realize the danger, essentially making these young teens and children in some cases aware of what could happen if you get addicted to these apps. Because, Tom, at the core of this case is whether or not the 20-year-old in this case, who she alleges she experienced a lot of this damage as a minor, whether or not it was the result of using these apps and essentially doom scrolling. She suffered things like depression, anxiety, things that could be copied and pasted to the over 1,600 other cases that are waiting and looking to see what happens in Los Angeles to see whether or not they would have a legal argument against the big tech companies as well. That's a reason why this first of its kind case is of such interest, because this would be a real precedent setter if a jury does indeed find them guilty. And again, we could get a verdict as early as tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, it's happening all over the world, these types of challenges, these court cases. We heard from parents outside of court who lost children to social media addiction. So what did we hear from them and from the closing arguments as well?
Yeah, well, look, I think what was so interesting about this case, despite the fact that it's really about one specific plaintiff, that 20-year-old girl, KGM, you saw that video that we played before we had this conversation, but there are so many other parents around the world watching this case so closely. In many cases, some of these parents, say that they feel the pain, and in some cases, they even say they lost a loved one to it. Take a listen to one parent that was speaking on the steps of the courthouse earlier today.
For us, we'll never have what we want in this lifetime, and that's our babies back. But we're here to support Kaylee, her family. We're here to support the other families that are here and the families around the United States and the world that are looking for justice, accountability. So we're here fighting for them.
Tony Roberts, the father of someone who committed suicide. And you can imagine the pain that a lot of people are feeling as they're watching all these developments. But again, that's what makes this such a landmark case. And Tom, I should point out the social media companies have denied all these allegations, and Meta saying that in this specific LA case, they're going to argue that this teen experienced these issues prior to using the apps.
Yeah. Brian Chung, thank you very much. Coming up from us, the all-out search tonight for a missing Air Force general with ties to an alleged UFO base. Plus, this shocking moment, this car almost hit a group of people in New York. We're going to show you the video coming up. We're back with the FBI, now joining the search for a retired Air Force general who was once in charge of a base associated with UFO conspiracy theories. William McCaslin was last seen on February 27th in Albuquerque, New Mexico. That according to the local sheriff's department. McCaslin held some of the most sensitive positions in the U.S. military, including commanding the research lab at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which conspiracy theorists have long believed holds extraterrestrial debris tied to the so-called Roswell incident, where some think a UFO crashed in 1947. The Air Force has always denied those links. But McCaslin's extraterrestrial ties have caused speculation about his disappearance. His wife addressing that in a Facebook post, writing that he had access to highly classified information, but believes it's, quote, quite unlikely he was taken to extract very dated secrets from him. NBC's Morgan Chesky following this story for us. Morgan, I mean, the search for McCaslin has added the sense of urgency because some medical concerns are ongoing. But what more do we know about these circumstances surrounding his disappearance and this very cryptic reference from his wife?
Yeah, Tom, we're learning more from authorities, but that reference to those dated secrets from his wife likely is a nod to the fact that he was a high-ranking military official with high security clearance at a variety of positions in the military. Of course, at that base in Ohio that has been long rumored to have ties to UFOs, extraterrestrials, things of that nature, of which the Air Force, as you mentioned, has repeatedly denied. But the circumstances are these. He was last seen February 27th at his Albuquerque home, Tom, around 11 a.m. He left behind a cell phone. We know he has a medical condition of some kind. That's what triggered the silver alert, but we don't know exactly what that is. His wife clarifying, though, Tom, that it is not dementia or Alzheimer's, but she is, of course, very concerned for his well-being here.
Okay, Morgan, thank you. We need to break away for some breaking news. We want to go right now to Virginia, where we're getting an update on that shooting at Old Dominion University. We'll get you over to the other news of the day in a moment, but here now is the FBI.
That we know about this shooting so far, how are we able to confirm that this was an act of terrorism?
How it was an act of terrorism? I can tell you that we have confirmed reports that prior to him conducting this act of terrorism, he shouted, stated Allah Akbar, and he was formerly a subject of an FBI investigation in material supporting terrorism.
Agent, were there explosives in his car?
We have no information about any explosives in his car or anywhere else at this time.
Did he have one weapon?
As far as I know, we only know of one weapon that he had on his person at this time.
What kind of aid was he giving to ISIL 10 years ago?
He wanted to conduct a terrorist attack similar to that in Fort Hood, Texas.
Is there any mention of the war in Iran right now?
None whatsoever.
How was he deceased?
There were students that were in that room that subdued him and rendered him no longer alive. I don't know how else to say it, but they basically were able to terminate the threat.
So he was not shot?
He was not shot.
He shot 3 people?
Correct. We have information that he shot 3 people.
The one that went to Virginia Beach for treatment, was that person just winged or grazed?
So I don't have any information at this time about the specific, life-threatening or not otherwise to the 2 that are still alive. But at this time, we're respecting the victims of the shooting. That includes not only the ones that were shot, but all of the people here at ODU I consider our victims. This is a tragic event, and I do ask that you look at that. You're all part of our community too. And so I just want to throw that out there to give the respect and the time needed to provide that additional information about the victims.
Did you say he was released in 2024?
Correct.
What was the Bureau's intelligence level on him since then?
So I don't have any of that information right now. That's because this is an ongoing investigation. After we learned of his name, we confirmed that he was formerly a subject of material support to terrorism investigation and obviously was sentenced for that. But I don't have any information indicating that he was known or an ongoing problem.
We'll take one more question. Do you have more specifics on how he was subdued?
Yeah, the brave ROTC members in that room subdued him. And if not for them, I'm not sure, what else he may have done. But that's exactly, they confronted him and they subdued him, and he was no longer able to conduct any further attack.
Go ahead. Okay. Yeah. Since there were ROTC students involved, is there any reason to believe that they were targeted?
Well, I believe that at this time we have to take all the information that we will receive from the victims. So I don't want to make any preemptive judgments or anything to this at this time exactly. Keep in mind we're going to look at forensic information, anything that he may have had interest specifically for any targets. And because I don't have that yet, I can't confirm that at this time.
Do you know how many people were in the classroom?
I don't know the exact number of the people in the classroom.
How long do you suspect this investigation will last?
It's a fair question. It really completely depends. So we obviously are going to dig in, and this is why we need the public support to where he may have been before this, who he may have been in contact with, if he had any other supporters, anybody providing him information. So we have to track every single lead down, and that's is exactly what the FBI will do. Every single lead, we're going to track down the veracity of the information and make sure that we have a full investigation with as much information, again, to ensure that there isn't anyone else that he may have been receiving support from as well.
Do you have any evidence that he was self-funded?
No, I don't have anything at this time.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so that is the news conference out of Norfolk, Virginia, on the shooting earlier today at Norfolk University, Old Dominion, I should say, University. 3 victims shot. They were in an ROTC class. One of those 3 died. And according to the FBI, the suspect, who had known ties to ISIS, or at least an ISIS sympathizer, was taken down and eliminated by the ROTC students in that class. They did not shoot him, but the FBI agent there said that they eliminated the threat. He's no longer alive. We know that he shouted Allah Akbar as he was in the classroom, according to the FBI, and we know that he was involved in a previous threat, an ISIS-inspired plot in which he said that he wanted to kind of inflict the same type of pain and death toll that was associated with the Fort Hood shooting a number of years ago. He had been out of prison since 2024. So, again, the FBI confirming of the 3 individuals, students who were shot, 1 is dead, and the ROTC members themselves eliminated the threat but without a weapon. We'll be right back. Gilchrist, I'm going to ask him. All right, in the last few hours, we got a big update from NASA on its Artemis II lunar mission to launch 4 astronauts on a historic journey around the moon. Mission managers now say they are set to launch as early as April 1st. The space agency has been working for weeks to address issues with its mega lunar rocket as part of its multi-billion-dollar program to return humans to the moon. And this mission does not include plans to land on the moon. NASA says that won't happen until 2028 at the earliest. This Artemis II mission will take 3 Americans and 1 Canadian on a big loop around the far side of the moon. The new timeline now comes after a series of delays because of some helium flow issues with the rocket, leading NASA to overhaul its plans for the mission. Let's get to NBC's Aaron Gilchrist, who I know wants to describe the trigonometry behind all of this. But Aaron, it sounds like all systems are go for an April launch, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We'll save the math for the next time we talk about this, Tom. But you're right. Yeah, all systems are go for this launch in April. There had been some delays, we know, that made the window in February not usable. Also for March, most recently, there was this issue with the helium flow as they were doing one of the dress rehearsals for this massive rocket system that you see on the screen here, and the spacecraft, the Orion spacecraft as well. They were doing some of the systems checks there and discovered a helium issue. That has been fixed now. New parts are in place on the upper stage of the rocket here, and so we expect that the rocket will be rolled out again next Thursday back to the launch pad, and then all things are in place and systems look good for a launch to happen as soon as April 1st. Now, as they were doing some of the final reviews through this process, a final readiness review, the astronauts were included in that conversation over the last couple of days here. I want you to hear what some of their concerns were, mainly about getting back to Earth after this 10-day mission. Listen.
They were listening to make sure that we have that really nailed down and we were going to be able to hit that entry interface. Understanding communications challenges and making sure that they'll be able to maintain communication with Earth. And that's one of the things they were looking at, those risks.
I mean, that's a big deal, right, Tom? We know that this is going to be a 3-day trip just from lower Earth orbit here out to the moon, around the backside of the moon, or the far side of the moon, I should say, where they'll be able to do some science experiments, some health checks, take some images of the moon's surface, something that hasn't been done in more than 50 years. And they want to make sure that they can talk to NASA about what they're seeing and doing out there, especially on that trip back, Tom.
Yeah, so April 1st, and hopefully that date doesn't live up to its reputation. But returning to the moon in the way of the Apollo missions from more than 50 years ago is kind of like the new juice, right, for NASA and the Trump administration. They're going big here. And the big question is, if NASA can land on the moon in 2028, then where does that leave the race with China?
Listen, you heard the new NASA administrator say that he really wants to ramp up this effort to get to the moon and to build that lunar base that we've been talking about over the last couple of years here. And so we're going to see, obviously, Artemis II take off. And that's going to take us to the sort of the orbit of the moon, if you will. And then we talk about missions that have been one mission that's been added, an Artemis 3, as well as 4 and 5. And the whole purpose here is to gather more information about what is possible at the moon, and then ultimately with Artemis 5 to be able to start building that lunar base. Tom, this is supposed to be a gateway to even deeper space travel, going out to Mars. And this is something that the U.S. has said is going to be something that we see happening, these space missions every year over the next couple of years.
Yeah, it's a new NASA and a new mission. Aaron Gilchrist, thanks for geeking out on space with me. Appreciate it. Okay, so that's the story of the next lunar flyby. But, of course, there's also a booming business of satellites orbiting Earth. And a new startup is spinning up some controversy as it hopes to launch tens of thousands of mirrors to, get this, reflect the sun and light up parts of the Earth at night. So here's the breakdown. This light in the night sky reflects the future of renewable energy.
Where does the sun never set?
Or will it be a headache keeping you up at night?
The dawn of the solar age.
It's not the moon, but a 60-foot wide mirror bouncing sunlight to the dark side of the planet. Space startup Reflect Orbital is hoping to launch 50,000 of these mirrors into orbit.
We are working on delivering sunlight on demand with space technology.
That's CEO Ben Nowak, who wants the FCC to let his company launch its first prototype satellite as soon as this summer.
Our first satellites will be able to deliver a full moon of brightness for about 5 minutes. That's demonstrating the technology so we can learn about it and then build a constellation out after that.
He has high hopes for that future fleet to help with things like nighttime emergency rescues and eventually to turn a profit, charge $5,000 an hour to get a single mirror fanned out and pointed at the customer's target.
We'll also be able to, light up farms, grow plants, light up solar farms, produce clean electricity.
But launching the space mirrors is igniting plenty of controversy.
Yes, and we don't want a private company or private individual deciding whether we're going to obliterate nighttime in my backyard.
Dark Sky, one of the world's leading advocates for protecting natural darkness, says light pollution would degrade the environment, interfere with space research, escalate the dangers of space junk, and disrupt the circadian rhythm of all living things on Earth.
There will be tremendous environmental impacts.
The FCC's policy says anything in space is extraterritorial and not in the jurisdiction of the United States, meaning impacts are not subject to environmental review. The agency did not respond to our request for comment.
It's absolutely not our intention to harm the Earth, harm animals, affect things negatively.
In the 1990s, Russian cosmonauts launched 2 space reflectors. Newspapers from the time echoed the same concern of disruption to life on Earth. More recently, NASA warned that light pollution from mega satellite constellations will contaminate astronomical research. Elon Musk's SpaceX, which owns Starlink's 10,000 satellites, publishes best practices to mitigate the impact of reflections. Unlike Starlink, here reflections are the point, but with precision.
Most of the time, the satellite will be reflecting sunlight away from the Earth. Somebody requests light, we then point the light at them purposefully. The precision of the spot and the ability to turn it off are key to that.
Still, these latest mirrors are shining a light on the bigger space debate. Yeah. So what do you think? Public comment on the project has closed. The company says it's waiting on the regulator, which will be checking to make sure radio comms do not create any sort of interference and the spacecraft can be safely disposed of at the end of its life. I kind of like sleeping at night. Coming up, the new warning today from President Trump, why he's telling Iran's soccer team to stay away from the World Cup. Plus, how a fox from England ended up, of all places, in the Bronx Zoo? President Trump is today warning Iran's men's soccer team that they may want to stay away from the World Cup for their own, quote, life and safety. Iran's national team is scheduled to play 3 matches here in the U.S. during the 2026 World Cup, which the president says they are welcome to come to, while also adding that he doesn't really, quote, believe it is appropriate that they be here. Just yesterday, Iran's sports minister said the team would not be participating, whether the president welcomes them or not. This is uncharted territory for just about everybody involved, with a country potentially pulling out of a tournament co-hosted by one of the countries that launched strikes against it. NBC's Monica Alba is at the White House. Monica, it was just over a year ago that the president, or last year, I should say, that the president was awarded the FIFA Peace Prize. So now we know that there's been some action behind the scenes to kind of smooth out the diplomatic crisis. Talk about the role the president is taking here and the specific message he's sending to Iran.
Yeah, Tom, you're seeing it right there on the screen. It is the president's very close relationship with the FIFA president, Gianni Infantino, that has played a key role in what we're seeing play out here, which, if it does happen, if Iran does indeed withdraw from the 2026 World Cup, there isn't really a historical precedent in the modern era for what that would mean to the tournament, which is being co-hosted by the United States, Mexico, and Canada. Specifically, we know that the president and Gianni Infantino met a couple of days ago here here at the White House. And after that meeting, according to Infantino, the president wanted to make clear that if Iran did want to come to the World Cup, that they were welcome to do so. Then fast forward to today and that message that you just talked about, where the president sort of called into question the safety of the players if they were indeed to come here. Iran, as you have pointed out, has said they don't plan to attend, but they haven't definitively announced that. And while we do know that FIFA, Tom, has certainly made some political considerations for teams in the past, what is really remarkable here is that you haven't seen anything like this specific situation. The fact that the U.S. is currently in conflict with Iran and the tournament is just 3 short months away really has just put tons up in the air. You can go back to 2022 when, certainly because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, they suspended Russia for that relevant tournament. But if you go back to World War II, even, the entire tournament was canceled in 1942 and 1946 because of the political upheaval. But since then, we really haven't seen anything that compares. And there's another aspect to all of this, which is what we're seeing in Mexico, one of the co-hosting countries, over concerns about security and the cartel violence there. Though the Mexican president today did want to say that she feels everything is secure enough for the qualifying matches that are set to take place there in just a couple of weeks. Tom.
Monica Alba at the White House. Thank you. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day. It's awfully tough to read, watch, or listen to everything. So our bureau teams have pulled some highlights, and this is what they tell us is going down in the region. We call it the local. From our Northeast Bureau, a pickup truck speeding past a school bus stop in Maryland. You can see it there. The driver nearly hits a couple of children walking near the road. Police are asking for the public's help in identifying the driver. Thankfully, nobody injured there. Out of our Southern Bureau, deputies in South Florida got a porcular, say this a couple of times, porculiar call. It was about a pig trotting next to the busy road. Now, as you would expect, officers gave chase, and they were eventually able to catch the runaway and take it to a local rescue farm. Tried to do a play on words, not sure it worked. Also, out of our Northeast Bureau, the red fox turned out to be quite the stowaway. He somehow snuck onto a cargo ship that traveled from England to New York last month. The fox is now in the care of the Bronx Zoo. Veterinarians there say the animal appears healthy after exams. They believe it's about 2 years old and will soon develop an attitude from the Bronx. Still to come from us, we're standing by for an update from law enforcement in the Michigan case of the attack on the synagogue. When it happens, we'll bring it live. But first, the lawsuit against a popular protein bar company. Why some customers say some David bars may not be as healthy as the company says. We're back. A popular protein bar is catching some flack with the protein maxine crowd. Now, you may have seen these at the grocery store. David bars, they list at 150 calories, but a new class action lawsuit alleges they pack many more calories than that. And that lawsuit accuses the company of, quote, unlawful and deceptive practices. Folks on social media are not happy about it, even empathizing with Regina George from the movie Mean Girls and her Cal-Teen bar crash out.
Mother! What the hell do you mean David protein bars have 300 calories?
The macros are a lie. They Mean Girls does.
Okay, so that's the social media reaction. The backlash got so intense, its founder had to say, quote, no one is getting Regina Georged, saying the confusion is coming from how the calories are being measured. NBC's Stephanie Gosk joins us now with this. So taking a closer look at the suit alleges it's double than the listed calories, right? What's the truth?
Right. It's really dramatic, Tom. I have a good example here. It's the cake batter bar, which is listed as having 150 calories and 2 grams of fat. But in actuality, according to this lawsuit and its testing, it has more than 270 calories and more than 12 grams of fat. So what's going on here? Well, I had a chance to speak to the founder, Peter Rahal, and this is what he had to say to me. Are people getting more calories than they think they're getting from David bars?
So the simple answer is no. It's a frivolous case where they were using the wrong measurement and method to measure calories.
So why are they using the wrong measurement? Well, he says a major ingredient in this bar is something called EPG, and that is a modified plant fat that is not actually absorbed by the body. 92% of it is not absorbed by the body. And without getting too graphic, Tom, it just kind of goes right through you, right? And so he says that the FDA does not require them to include that in the calorie count. And so when they did their calories, they did not. And he says because this lawsuit does, that's where the discrepancy comes into play. But he says that those extra calories are not being absorbed.
Okay.
Tom?
Did you sample a few just to see for yourself?
No, I decided to eat a hard-boiled egg, Tom.
Okay.
Because that's where I
right.
like to get my protein.
See, you are true to yourself. Yeah, no, you are living to yourself. Stephanie Gosk, thank you very much. That's a wrap for us at this hour. The news resumes right now on News Now. I'm Tom Costello, and we are coming on the air with more breaking news. Any minute now, we expect to get an update from the FBI and the Michigan police on that attack at a synagogue there. We will have a live look at the room. You know the suspect is now dead, as we have reported, after the sheriff says he rammed a car through the temple's doors and then drove down the hallway. The sheriff says temple security shot at the car, and we could see smoke coming out of the building after something inside that vehicle ignited and caught fire. Thankfully, nobody else died in the attack. One security guard was hit by the car and taken to the hospital, but is expected to be okay. Nobody inside, including the children or staff, were injured. The president, in just the last hour, sending his support to that community.
I want to send our love to the Michigan Jewish community and all of the people in Detroit area following the attack on the Jewish synagogue early today. It's a terrible thing, but it goes on. We're going to be right down to the bottom of it.
And there is an awful lot to get to the bottom of, including how exactly the suspect was killed, what caused the car to catch on fire, and then the big one, what's the motive here? We have team coverage on this. NBC's Valerie Castro standing by. We want to start, though, with NBC's Tom Winter, who covers law enforcement. Actually, Valerie, I'll tell you what, that has rattled this community in Michigan. So what are you hearing from the people on the ground and everybody accounted for?
Well, Tom, we finally heard from the congregation late today. The temple released a statement on social media saying in part that, "Dear Temple Israel family, everyone is safe." Those are words that come as a relief, frankly, given the anxiety and the nerves throughout the day, saying everyone is safe. All 140 students in our Susan and Harold Lost Early Childhood Center, our amazing staff, our courageous teachers, and our heroic security personnel are all accounted for and safe, going on to call the security personnel truly heroes. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer also released a statement just within the last hour or so saying today's attack is every community's worst nightmare. We saw incredible people step up today to save lives and stop the suspect. Our state is grateful to the security personnel for their bravery and law enforcement who jumped into action to keep students safe. Of course, Tom, the students are what was top of mind today. We know there was a daycare or child care center there. We know everyone was evacuated safely, but early in the day, you can imagine the nerves, the fear. People in the community nearby know this is a very well-known congregation with 3,000 members. And our affiliate was there on the scene when this first happened and spoke to someone in the area who knew someone there at the temple. Take a listen to what they had to say.
What's going through your mind? I'm scared to death for my friends. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen this kind of, this number of police officers out here. And my first thing, to be honest, were the children. There's a whole, daycare program in there. And parents and grandparents have been coming, and they're scared to death for their children.
Again, we know everyone was evacuated. The temple crediting teachers with following their training and keeping the children calm. We know they were all evacuated to a local JCC, and we've learned late tonight everyone has been reunited with their families. Tom.
Okay, good news there. We have a live shot from the room where we expect the news conference to start any moment here as we go to Tom Winter. And Tom, walk us through where the investigation stands right now. I know you've been talking to several federal law enforcement sources.
Yeah, I mean, talking to law enforcement sources in Michigan and they've been briefed on this. Tom, here's what we anticipate. They've identified the owner and registration of the truck. But as we know from experience, that does not mean that the person who drove the truck into this Temple Israel today, filled with kids in preschool, is the same person that owns the truck. And so, given the fact there was a significant violent fire after this, there was a little bit of extra work they wanted to do with identification. I think they're close, if not done, on that already. The FBI calling for this press conference, along with authorities in Michigan, it's a pretty good indication they're probably going to take this case over. And that means it can go one of two ways, Tom. It can go the route of something tied to the fact that this is obviously a religious institution. This is a synagogue. We all know the anti-Semitism picture in this country has spiked dramatically, certainly following Hamas's attack on October 7th and Israel's response to it. It had already been trending and rising before that point. It has only continued. So that is one potential avenue in this investigation. The second potential avenue where this could go is along the lines of terrorism and ISIS. And I'll point people to the fact that we have seen several ISIS attacks or planned attacks already this year, several instances of extremism. We saw the incident that happened in Austin, Texas, where there was a fatal shooting, mass shooting at a bar. The individual there wearing Iranian flag material on their clothing. Then you had another incident in New York City just less than a week ago where two individuals supporting ISIS threw bombs at the direction of New York City police officers at a protest. And then you had the incident that I think we'll be talking about in just a short while with our colleague that happened at Old Dominion. So terrorism is very much high on the minds of the FBI at the moment, and be something we'll be closely following as we get started with this press conference.
Okay, Tom, stand by there if you don't mind in Michigan. Let's bring in Ryan Nobles, who's now in Norfolk, Virginia, tracking this other shooting that Tom was mentioning. It was at Old Dominion University. And Ryan, we just heard authorities share new details about the suspect and how exactly he was stopped. Can you bring us up to date?
Yeah, it sounds like it was a pretty dramatic scene inside that classroom on the campus of Old Dominion, Tom. Law enforcement officials just briefing reporters in the last 20 minutes or so. They say that the alleged gunman came into the room. He shouted Allahu Akbar and then pulled out a gun and started firing. And they say that it was the folks in that room, many of them ROTC students, that actually got up and intervened and tackled the gunman and prevented him from doing more damage, from injuring more people. Now, there was still a loss of life. We know at least one person has died. Two others were taken to the hospital and are in critical condition. A third potential victim took themselves to the hospital. At this point, law enforcement officials have yet to announce anything or reveal anything about the identities of the victims of this case. But we do know quite a bit about the suspect, who also lost his life during this incident. His name is Mohammed Jallah. He is a former member of the Army Reserve. He was someone who pleaded guilty to a terror-related charge. He was accused of providing funding to folks that were trying to be aligned with terrorist organizations. He is described as an ISIS sympathizer at one point in his life. He was sentenced to 11 years in prison and was just released in 2024. There is some thought that perhaps he was still under supervised release. Part of his sentence was 5 years of supervised release after he was let go from prison. So this is still a situation where law enforcement officials are still trying to figure out exactly everything that went into this shooting, why he happened to target this particular classroom. There is some speculation that perhaps it was because it was an ROTC class. And they are investigating this as a possible terrorist attack, or at least something that is related to terrorism on some level. At this point, though, Tom, officials at Old Dominion say that the campus is safe, that they have secured it. They did cancel classes for the rest of the day as a result of this shooting. So at this point, we know one person lost their life, 3 other people being treated, and the gunman in this case also is dead. Tom.
Yeah, and apparently it was members of the ROTC who eliminated him, in the words of the FBI. Let's bring in Ryan Riley, who's also following the investigation. And as Ryan Noble suggested, the suspect was well known to the FBI and to the police.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that old case, as Tom first reported about the identity of this individual, and the FBI has now confirmed this, is an individual who was arrested in connection with this ISIS case. And because of that case, we just know a ton about that background. The government in that case actually did go for a 20-year sentence, but they only only got 11 years from the judge. And when you factor in, good behavior, it makes sense that he would have gotten out around that time. But, as Ryan had mentioned as well, there was that question of whether he was still supposed to be under supervised release. And one of the things that the judge imposed in that instance was computer monitoring. So this individual was supposed to have all of their communications monitored. And of course, he had a conviction, a terrorism conviction. So the big question is, how did he get that gun? I think that's what we're going to be turning to potentially next. I mean, obviously the suspect is dead here, so there's not going to be a prosecution, but the investigation will be ongoing to figure out exactly what happened in that instance.
Yeah, so we have this ISIS connection. Let's go back to Tom Winter, who also covers law enforcement. And Tom, you're standing by to watch the Michigan news conference from the other attack today we had in Michigan. What else do you want to add on this ISIS link, at least to Norfolk?
I mean, I think there's going to be some serious questions raised beyond the good ones that Ryan has already talked about. I mean, what was this person's state of mind when they left? Could there have been a deportation issue here where this person could have been removed from the United States? That'll be a bit of a question. That's some facts we still need to dig into, whether or not that was eligible or not. But really, there'll be an opportunity now as we kind of get to a certain point in history. So it's 2026. The ISIS threat really got going in 2014, 2015, 2016. We saw a series of prolific attacks in Europe. ISIS-inspired attacks, a mass shooting at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, for instance, a San Bernardino, California terrorist attack. We've now hit that 10, 11-year-ish marker, and when you take off, and Ryan's better at the math than I am, take off a certain amount of time for good behavior, time served, how many of those individuals are going to be coming up to be coming out of the federal prison system? And the challenge with that, traditionally terrorists have not been high recidivists, but do they get the attention and the care that they need in prison to kind of shake the programming that they get from watching all that extremist material and from ISIS? That's a huge question. Something we'll definitely be looking at, Tom.
Ryan Nobles, I know you've got to get ready for NBC Nightly News on the network, but I'm wondering, last thoughts from you before we go, and we continue to await this news conference in Michigan, but update on the ground from you and just how is the community feeling right now?
Well, there's certainly a sense of shock, Tom, that this could happen in a place that most people consider to be safe, and that is a college campus. And the idea that someone could just walk into a room with a gun and open fire and kill people is something that has shaken this campus. Of course, Virginia is a state that has dealt with violence like this on a college campus. We remember the Virginia Tech massacre, which was, of course, much larger in scale, but still the same type of terror that was inflicted upon a college community. And one of our affiliate in Washington spoke to the father of an individual that was in the room during this terrorist attack, or what could potentially be a terrorist attack, and described how quickly the other students in the room responded to intervene and try and quell this threat from going forward. So as terrible as this situation is, Tom, it seems as though if it weren't for the quick action of the students in that room, it could have been so much worse. And I think despite how terrible this is, there is some degree of relief at just the violence being contained to the level that it was here today.
Yeah, and I was one of those who cover Virginia Tech, and what a horrific attack that was. So to see this outcome, certainly, while tragic, is far less worse, if you will, than that one at Virginia Tech. Ryan, thank you very much. We want to go back now to Valerie Castro, who's also been kind of keeping her eyes on the security at houses of worship, specifically at synagogues and the like. Valerie?
Yeah, Tom, and we're still waiting to find out the motive in today's attack there in Michigan. But given the events that happened in the Middle East just 2 weeks ago, we know law enforcement across the country announced that they were going to step up security at houses of worship, at cultural sites across the country, in case there was any sort of retaliation. The sheriff in Michigan saying earlier today that because of that intelligence a couple of weeks ago, they prepared for situations like this and they were able to quickly react. And today the NYPD announced they are again putting a visible presence in front of synagogues and houses of worship, as well as police in Washington, D.C. and in the Philadelphia area. So, again, a visible presence given the day's events. Tom?
Tom Winter also standing by again for the Michigan News Conference. You know, you are always talking to law enforcement, and they are very, very much aware of the ongoing threat matrix, if you will. What are they seeing? What are they worried about right now, given the war that we have ongoing in Iran and these bubbling instances here and there?
Yeah, I might be on the phone with them, and for viewers that are closely watching, that's the reason why occasionally here I'm looking down at my phone. Look, we are in an unprecedented time in this country. There are a number of threats that have nothing to do with anybody or any cause or anything with the Middle East. But since October 7th and Hamas's attack on Israel and Israel's response, we have seen kind of a steady escalation in the types of threats that we would see with extremism that we hadn't seen really for a couple of years. And now that you have Iran being fully involved, you have all sorts of Sunni and Shia issues. You have all sorts of the potential for destabilization in the Middle East. You've had some troubling developments in Syria with respect to former ISIS camps there. Putting it all together, Tom, this is an increasingly dangerous environment. And now that it's no longer that 2000 to 2003 model of some big command and control al-Qaeda operation. Instead, it's more of people see an image on TV, something getting exploded, something blowing up, something that triggers them to act. It's very difficult for law enforcement to identify that person in advance and begin to intercede and interdict and push that person off of potential plot and into handcuffs. It's a tough time, Tom.
Yeah, the lone wolf threat is always thought to be the most serious. We're going to keep an eye as we watch for this news conference in Michigan. We'll bring it back as soon as it begins. But we want to get to some other breaking news at this moment, and that is out of the Middle East. We're just now hearing from U.S. Central Command saying it is aware of a U.S. aircraft that has been lost over Iraqi airspace. So that's as Iran's new supreme leader is defying President Trump, promising not to back down on demands to de-escalate the war. His new statement read aloud by state media. The big headline there is that Iran plans to keep a key oil shipping route closed, vowing to attack any ship allied with the U.S. or Israel that passes through the Strait of Hormuz, which, as you know, handles about a fifth of the world's oil supply. So you see one of the ships burning just off the Iraqi coast. Iran also says it will keep attacking U.S. assets in the region, like the plumes of smoke you see near the U.S. consulate and an airport in Iraq. And now it also promises not to hit civilian targets in the Gulf. But you see a drone striking a hotel in the UAE. We've had that video today, and that's happening as Israel and Hezbollah trade strikes in Lebanon, forcing hundreds of thousands of people, their families, to flee. This war is exacting this punishing death toll barely 2 weeks in. Here are the latest numbers we have. At least 1,200 people dead in Iran, at least 680 killed in Lebanon, 31 so far in Iraq, we're told, 13 in Israel, more than 20 across various other nations, and of course 7 U.S. service members have died. We want to go to the region. NBC's Raf Sanchez is in Beirut. Raf, before we talk about what's happening in Lebanon, walk us through what you're now learning about this missing U.S. plane.
Yeah, Tom, so this is a developing situation, but here's what we know right now. U.S. Central Command says a U.S. KC-135 Stratotanker, which is a very large refueling aircraft, has gone down in western Iraq. They are saying that rescue efforts are currently underway and that the aircraft was not brought down by enemy fire, so it was not shot down by the Iranians, and it was not brought down by friendly fire. So this doesn't seem to have been a mistake by either the U.S. or one of its allies in the Middle East. They are saying that the aircraft was in friendly airspace during Operation Epic Fury. Rescue efforts are ongoing. And this is important, Tom. They say 2 aircraft were involved in the incident. 1 aircraft went down in western Iraq. The second landed safely. Now, we just do not know exactly what happened here, but Tom, you will be familiar with how these refueling aircraft work. It is a very complicated bit of flying. They are up in the air. They lower what's called a boom, which is essentially a long tube, like what you would use to pump gas into your car. and it connects into the front of a fighter aircraft, a bomber, whatever it is that needs refueling. So we do not know what went down here, but the fact that Central Command is saying 2 aircraft were involved raises the possibility that maybe something went wrong during that delicate mid-air ballet of refueling. And we should really stress, Tom, these refueling aircraft are absolutely crucial for the U.S. war effort right now, given that how far these pilots are flying into hostile territory.
Yeah.
We'll also just say, Tom, at this point, there is no word on any injuries. This is usually a 3-person crew, and U.S. Central Command is asking for continued patience as they try to assess the status of these crew members. Tom?
Boy, that is an interesting development. Raf, thank you. Let's talk about the situation where you are now. We know Lebanon's prime minister addressed his country today saying, quote, it is a war we did not want. So what is the situation on the ground? It is so complicated because, of course, you've got the Lebanese government, and Hezbollah is not necessarily part of the Lebanese government. And now Iran, or rather Israel, is on this offensive.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Tom. So if the Lebanese prime minister, the head of government in this country, sounds like he's talking like a bystander about this situation, it's because he sort of is. Hezbollah is the most powerful military force in this country, that big Iranian-backed militant group, but it is not under the control of the Lebanese government, and it is now engaged in this very intense fighting with Israel. There is a lot of frustration here in Lebanon. There's real anger towards Israel, of course, who is striking Lebanon, both here in Beirut and further south. But there is also anger at Hezbollah because there was a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah brokered by the Biden administration back in late 2024. There's been a year or so of relative quiet here in Lebanon. Israel has still been attacking here and there, but relative quiet. And then Hezbollah the other night began firing into Israel, and there is a real feeling that Hezbollah has dragged this country back into a bloody war. Tom?
Yet again. Raf Sanchez, thank you very much, reporting from Lebanon. NBC's Hallie Kanal joins us now. Hallie, the president is trying to spin rising oil and gas prices, right? He writes on social media, the United States, he says, is the largest oil producer in the world by far. So when oil prices go up, we make a lot of money. But Hallie, who's we, and who's paying the price, and how does that fix prices at the pump that we all pay?
Well, it doesn't, and the president did not say who he was referring to when he said we, but you can assume it's those U.S. oil producers, so think companies like Exxon or Chevron, because when global oil prices rise, that means that they can sell the oil they produce at a higher price, so it helps their profits and their margins, but it's not going to help drivers because oil is priced on a very interconnected global market. When oil rises, you're going to see that at the pump. Typically, $1 rise in crude translates to about 2 to 3 cents per gallon at these gas stations. And you're already seeing some of the impact here. According to AAA, prices on a national level, they're at around $3.60 a gallon. You compare that to 1 month ago, we're up from $2.94. So a significant rise there. So even though higher oil prices can boost these prices for producers, for consumers, it usually means paying more to fill up, as we're seeing right now on your screen.
Yeah. Let's talk about solutions. We know the U.S. is releasing more than 170 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. The president slammed his predecessor for doing exactly that when the Russia war with Ukraine broke out, right?
Yeah, President Biden did this in March 2022. They ordered the release of 180 million barrels over a period of 6 months. Now, this was the largest drawdown ever from the reserve. It was meant to help those supply shocks from that war. Now, since that time, some oil has been repurchased to refill that stockpile, but much of it still hasn't been replenished since Congress has to approve that funding for additional purchases. Now, the Trump administration this time around with that 172 million barrel release, that would push the reserve down to levels that we haven't seen since the 1980s. So this is meant to help stabilize markets. The administration has categorized this as an emergency, saying this is a threat to not only America, but to the world, and that doing so is going to eventually drive prices down. But even after this announcement was made, we didn't see oil prices come down. Traders essentially pricing in that we're going to see this conflict continue, and it all comes down to reopening the Strait of Hormuz, which it seems like we're nowhere close to that.
I heard an analyst today say this would be a drop in the bucket or the barrel compared to how much oil moves through the Strait of Hormuz. Hallie, thank you very much. Tonight, high winds and severe storms are putting about 88 million people from the Northwest to the Great Lakes under wind alerts, and that's leaving deadly road conditions in some places. High winds rolled a semi-truck over in Colorado. Lots of dust flying through the air there in Colorado. And at least one person is dead in Washington state after dangerous winds brought down a tree there. It's also causing some fire risk out west. Small brush fires popping up in Wyoming and Colorado. Fort Collins fire teams say this one is mostly under control now. It all comes as cleanup efforts are still underway across some of the Midwest after those deadly tornadoes we've been talking about. More damage overnight in spots including Louisiana and Mississippi. Look at the storm damage there, making dangerous conditions and the roads there even worse. Let's bring in our meteorologist, Bill Cairns. Bill, there's just a mess of a weather pattern going on right now. Yeah, we got wildfires, we have snowstorms. It was 80 degrees yesterday here, then it started snowing today, and now we've got the tornadoes up in the upper Midwest. I mean, it is a head spinner.
Yeah, it's just been absolutely wild, and the wind damage concerns continue, especially from Wyoming out into the plains. We still have some small fires that we're worried about too, and in areas of Nebraska southwards, the front range of Colorado. If we get any fires that spread with these high winds, they're just going to rapidly spread. Fort Collins had a big scare earlier today, had some big evacuation. So I know we got some breaking news, Tom.
Bill, I need to interrupt you. Bill, I'm sorry. We have breaking news. We're going back to Michigan for the FBI news conference on the shooting there at the synagogue.
We're going to have a number of speakers, both from the police department here, Chief Young, and from the FBI. Obviously, a horrific thing happened tragically here in Oakland County again. So we've been through a number of these things. And the one thing that I want to make sure the local community is aware of first and foremost is this community works together, hand in glove. This community takes care of each other. And we have been communicating regularly. I have been texting the chief, not just in West Bloomfield, but every place that's got significant houses of worship, Jewish facilities, synagogues, temples, you name it, over the past 2 weeks. Obviously, what happens around the world sometimes affects us, so we have to think about it and be prepared for it. So we've been talking. I texted actually the head of security from the temple 2 days ago and communicated some information to him. So the first thing the community should know is that we not just today work together, we work together all the time. Our state, our federal, and local partners. Number one. Number two, we train. In our world, preparation is important. We hope and pray it never happens, but that's not a strategy. Preparation is. So all of us have been training together for many years for active shooters or active assailants, mass casualty events. And tragically, we've had way more than our share. So that is ongoing and is in place. The third thing is important to note, no children and no staff were hurt. So we know there's evil in the world, and we know they only have to get it right once, and sometimes they do. They may not come on anybody's radar and they show up, but what happens when they show up, that's where training and preparation kicks in. The security staff did an amazing job. And you'll get some of the details on that, but they stopped the threat. No kids, no staff were hurt. Now, there were some injuries and things that had to be taken care of. One of the head of security was taken to the hospital. He got knocked down by the car when it breached the building. And we've had 30 law enforcement officers taken to the hospital for smoke inhalation. So a lot of our folks from my SWAT team and other agencies are still in treatment because that building became engulfed when the car, and we'll learn all of that through the investigation, why it became engulfed in flames, what was the ignition source, and I think the ATF is taking the origin of that source and origin of the fire. But in any event, what it did, it caused terrible, terrible smoke in that part of the building. And so when all of our people collectively went in that building to search out the threat, to remove innocent, a lot of them took in significant amount of smoke inhalation, and they're at the hospital being treated. So I also know you're going to have a lot of questions. A lot of those questions can't be answered at this point because it's super preliminary in the investigation. You know, all of us have thoughts of maybe why this happened, But we don't operate in a world where we can presume something. We have to determine it through investigation and specificity. And that is a work that's in progress as we speak. All of us will work seamlessly together to get the answers, and then it will be called what it is. Obviously, it's a hateful, terrible thing, right? But what drove this person into action, that has to be determined by the investigation. We can presume, but we have to find those facts, and that's going to happen over the next days in time. So we won't be able to get into a lot of the evidentiary questions, but we're available to make sure the community understands that we are still on a very heightened platform. And the most important thing that I would tell the community, don't be afraid to call us. If we're not your own local police department, call your local police department. We'd rather respond to 100 nothings than miss one real deal. The only way we prevent something like this is to get a call. Something's off with my son, my brother, my boyfriend, whatever the case. I saw something posted. That's the only way we interdict, because people are more likely to see or hear something before us. So if you see or hear something, you have to communicate that. And then we can intervene and hopefully prevent. But if we can't prevent, then we respond and mitigate. That's what happened today. And I think based on the early information, it happened flawlessly. So with that, I'll kick it over to my friend Chief Young from West Bloomfield Police Department.
Thank you, Sheriff. My name is Dale Young. I'm the police chief of West Bloomfield. I want to share with you how we got to where we are today. So today we received a 911 call which came in around 12:19 p.m. It was about an active shooter situation at Temple Israel where the individual drove into the building. West Bloomfield officers arrived on scene under 5 minutes. Temple security officers engaged the individual and neutralized the threat. Our officers, combined with area agencies, cleared the building multiple times and safely and successfully evacuated all children and staff. This is an active crime scene, and we are examining every angle related to this situation. I will now turn this over to the FBI for further comment.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Runyon, last name Runyan, and I'm a special agent in charge of the FBI Detroit Field Office. This is a deeply disturbing and tragic incident, and our deepest sympathies are with the victims, their family, and the entire Jewish community. The FBI is here working with our state, local, and federal partners to investigate this incident, and I can confirm that we are leading the investigation right now as a targeted act of violence against the Jewish community. As my partners have said, this is an active and ongoing investigation with an active crime scene, and I ask for your patience as we process this evidence and pursue every lead that has come to us and that we have developed thus far. What I can share is this. There was one subject involved in this incident who is now deceased. And as my partners have said, we've had no victim fatalities. I would not be able to provide additional information at this time on the subject or his motive, as our goal is to protect the integrity of this investigation and to ensure that we give you accurate and timely information as soon as we can. The FBI was notified of active shooter at Temple Israel at approximately 12:45. We immediately activated and deployed all of our crisis response resources, which includes our SWAT team, our crisis negotiation team, our evidence response team, our special agent bomb techs, our weapons of mass destruction team, our cellular analysis survey team, and our victim services, as well as more than 100 agents and analysts to ensure that we are actively mitigating and responding to the active threat, but also pursuing diligently and methodically every lead that we have. My ask to the public is a few things. I know everyone wants information now, but I ask that you be patient as we are still processing this scene and still pursuing everything that we can and that has come to us to date. Second, we've activated a digital media tip line for any witnesses who has photos or videos of the incident today. They can upload those at www.fbi.gov/West Bloomfield attack, all one word. But the public can also report through our call line at 1-800-CALL-FBI if you have any information about this incident and or any other suspicious activity that you see around in your community, your life, your places of worship, your schools. As the sheriff said, we all need to remain vigilant, and it takes the whole community to ensure that we remain safe. I also understand that congregants may have left some personal effects at the synagogue, and as soon as we have a reunification site to get those effects to the affected victims, we will be sure and release that as soon as possible. I want to thank our partners and the first responders and the security personnel at Temple Israel who did an excellent job at mitigating this threat, and we are very grateful for their bravery and their service. Next, I'd like to bring up our offer-up, Stephen Ingberg, the CEO of the Jewish Federation of Detroit.
As the CEO of the Jewish Federation of Detroit, I'd love to say I'm shocked or I'm surprised, but I'm not. This is something that we train for. Thank you to all of the law enforcement officers who stand behind us and the many who don't. Thank you to our Jewish community security team. This is a tough time. It is a tough time, but we will get through this. We will get through this together. We will get through this stronger. And we'll continue to be loud and proud of being Jewish. This will not change us. This will not deter us. And we will continue. With that, I'd like to turn over to Rabbi Ariana Gordon of Temple Israel.
Thank you so much. As you've heard, there's so much that we don't know. We're going to be processing all of this in the days and weeks to come. But what I do want to say is a huge thank you to our law enforcement, to our Temple Israel security team, and to our early childhood center teachers who were the true rock stars of the day. They ensured that all of our children remained safe and calm throughout the entire day and got every single child safely reunited with their parents this afternoon. And for that, I can't express my gratitude enough. We are really appreciative to all of you for making sure that everyone made it home tonight. Thank you for being here.
Okay, I think that's it. Obviously, we can't get into the evidentiary questions, as I said, but I think the message is clear that we all stand united, stand together, whether it's federal, state, county, or local. We're committed to keeping this community safe. If you think you can target the Jewish community in this county or anywhere in this state, you're wrong. We're going to not only stand in front of them to protect them, we're coming for you. So with that, thank you.
Very strong news conference there from Michigan. That's the sheriff, as you heard, from Oakland County, Michigan. And the last words there are awfully strong. We will stand and protect our Jewish community. If you're coming for them, we're going to be running interference is the bottom line. Here are the headlines if you missed it. The sheriff announcing that this happened at about 12:15 or so, 12:19 local time, when police got a call for an active shooter and somebody inside was driving a vehicle or had rammed the vehicle into the building itself. No students, none of the kids, and none of the staff were injured. The suspect was immediately identified in terms of targeted or taken out, I should say, by security teams there at the synagogue. And he was eliminated. One security officer, the head of security at the temple, was injured as he was hit by the vehicle itself. They also made the point that they have for years they have worked together, trained together for a mass casualty incident, and they responded very quickly and instituted all of those policies and everything that they have worked on. We're going to quickly now bring back in NBC's Tom Winter, who's been talking to his sources as well. Tom, talk about the people who were impacted by this, and specifically that fire that started here. Do we yet know how that happened?
Yeah, the fire appears to have been started by some sort of incendiary device that was contained within that car. We should have some more information on that shortly. The details here, and Jennifer Runyon, this is her second incident involving as head of the FBI in Detroit, involving a religious institution. Look, it's very clear the Jewish community here was targeted. That's what she's saying. That's why this is a federal crime. That's why the FBI is involved. And now a big question will be, why did this person target the Jewish community? There are definitely some inquiries along the lines of terrorism. It's obvious that there could be charges tied to the fact, if this person was still alive, there could be charges tied to the fact that this was a religious institution that came under attack. And as we mentioned throughout the broadcast, certainly an incredible rise in anti-Semitism in this country. But this might have a deeper meaning. The FBI is pouring through several individuals' background. They've identified who owns the car. The big question, Tom, is who is actually driving the car, and that work is ongoing. But look, this is really serious, and we can expect some more details, I would say, in the next coming hours and days.
I think the other headline is, given the fact that we've now had several incidents, if you are aware of anything that looks suspicious, call the police or call the FBI, 1-800-CALL-FBI. Tom Winter, thank you. We'll be right back. All right, in the last few hours, we got a big update from NASA on its Artemis II lunar mission to launch 4 astronauts on a historic journey around the moon. Mission managers now say they are set to launch as early as April 1st. The space agency has been working for weeks to address issues with its mega lunar rocket as part of its multi-billion-dollar program to return humans to the moon. And this mission does not include plans to land on the moon. NASA says that won't happen until 2028 at the earliest. This Artemis II mission will take 3 Americans and 1 Canadian on a big loop around the far side of the moon. The new timeline now comes after a series of delays because of some helium flow issues with the rocket, leading NASA to overhaul its plans for the mission. Let's get to NBC's Aaron Gilchrist, who I know wants to describe the trigonometry behind all of this. But Aaron, it sounds like all systems are go for an April launch, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We'll save the math for the next time we talk about this, Tom. But you're right. Yeah, all systems are go for this launch in April. There had been some delays, we know, that made the window in February not usable. Also for March, most recently, there was this issue with the helium flow as they were doing one of the dress rehearsals for this massive rocket system that you see on the screen here, and the spacecraft, the Orion spacecraft as well. They were doing some of the systems checks there and discovered a helium issue. That has been fixed now. New parts are in place on the upper stage of the rocket here, and so we expect that the rocket will be rolled out again next Thursday, back to the launch pad, and then all things are in place and systems look good for a launch to happen as soon as April 1st. Now, as they were doing some of the final reviews through this process, a final readiness review, the astronauts were included in that conversation over the last couple of days here. I want you to hear what some of their concerns were, mainly about getting back to Earth after this 10-day mission. Listen.
They were listening to make sure that we had that really nailed down and we were going to be able to hit that entry interface. Understanding communications challenges and making sure that they'll be able to maintain communication with Earth. And that's one of the things they were looking at, those risks.
I mean, that's a big deal, right, Tom? We know that this is going to be a 3-day trip just from lower Earth orbit here out to the moon, around the backside of the moon, or the far side of the moon, I should say, where they'll be able to do some science experiments, some health checks, take some images of the moon's surface, something that hasn't been done in more than 50 years. And they want to make sure that they can talk to NASA about what they're seeing and doing out there, especially on that trip back, Tom.
Yeah, so April 1st, and hopefully that date doesn't live up to its reputation. But returning to the moon in the way of the Apollo missions from more than 50 years ago is kind of like the new juice, right, for NASA and the Trump administration. They're going big here. And the big question is, if NASA can land on the moon in 2028, then where does that leave the race with China?
Listen, you heard the new NASA administrator say that he really wants to ramp up this effort to get to the moon and to build that lunar base that we've been talking about over the last couple of years here. And so we're going to see, obviously, Artemis II take off, and that's going to take us to the sort of the orbit of the moon, if you will. And then we talk about missions that have been one mission that's been added, an Artemis 3, as well as 4 and 5. And the whole purpose here is to gather more information about what is possible at the moon, and then ultimately with Artemis 5 to be able to start building that lunar base. Tom, this is supposed to be a gateway to even deeper space travel, going out to Mars. And this is something that the U.S. has said is going to be something that we see happening, these space missions every year over the next couple of years.
Yeah, it's a new NASA and a new mission. Aaron Gilchrist, thanks for geeking out on space with me. Appreciate it. Okay, so that's the story of the next lunar flyby. But, of course, there's also a booming business of satellites orbiting Earth. And a new startup is spinning up some controversy as it hopes to launch tens of thousands of mirrors to, get this, reflect the sun and light up parts of the Earth at night. So here's the breakdown. This light in the night sky reflect the future of renewable energy.
Where does the sun never set?
Or will it be a headache keeping you up at night?
The dawn of the solar age.
It's not the moon, but a 60-foot wide mirror bouncing sunlight to the dark side of the planet. Space startup Reflect Orbital is hoping to launch 50,000 of these mirrors into orbit.
We are working on delivering sunlight on demand with space technology.
That's CEO Ben Nowak, who wants the FCC to let his company launch its first prototype satellite as soon as this summer.
Our first satellites will be able to deliver a full moon of brightness for about 5 minutes. That's demonstrating the technology so we can learn about it and then build a constellation out after that.
He has high hopes for that future fleet to help with things like nighttime emergency rescues and eventually to turn a profit, charge $5,000 an hour to get a single mirror fanned out and pointed at the customer's target.
We'll also be able to, light up farms, grow plants, light up solar farms, produce clean electricity.
But launching the space mirrors is igniting plenty of controversy.
Yes, and we don't want a private company or private individual deciding whether we're going to obliterate nighttime in my backyard.
Dark Sky, one of the world's leading advocates for protecting natural darkness, says light pollution would degrade the environment, interfere with space research, escalate the dangers of space junk, and disrupt the circadian rhythm of all living things on Earth.
There will be tremendous environmental impacts.
The FCC's policy says anything in space is extraterritorial and not in the jurisdiction of the United States, meaning impacts are not subject to environmental review. The agency did not respond to our request for comment.
It's absolutely not our intention to harm the Earth, harm animals, affect things negatively.
In the 1990s, Russian cosmonauts launched 2 space reflectors. Newspapers from the time echoed the same concern of disruption to life on Earth. More recently, NASA warned that light pollution from mega satellite constellations will contaminate astronomical research. Elon Musk's SpaceX, which owns Starlink's 10,000 satellites, publishes best practices to mitigate the impact of reflections. Unlike Starlink, here reflections are the point, but with precision.
Most of the time, the satellite will be reflecting sunlight away from the Earth. Somebody requests light, we then point the light at them purposefully. The precision of the spot and the ability to turn it off are key to that.
Still, these latest mirrors are shining a light on the bigger space debate. Yeah. So what do you think? Public comment on the project has closed. The company says it's waiting on the regulator, which will be checking to make sure radio comms do not create any sort of interference and the spacecraft can be safely disposed of at the end of its life. I kind of like sleeping at night. Coming up, the new warning today from President Trump, why he's telling Iran's soccer team to stay away from the World Cup. Plus, how a fox from England ended up, of all places, in the Bronx Zoo. President Trump is today warning Iran's men's soccer team that they may want to stay away from the World Cup for their own, quote, life and safety. Iran's national team is scheduled to play 3 matches here in the U.S. during the 2026 World Cup, which the president says they are welcome to come to, while also adding that he doesn't really, quote, believe it is appropriate that they be here. Just yesterday, Iran's sports minister said the team would not be participating, whether the president welcomes them or not. This is uncharted territory for just about everybody involved, with a country potentially pulling out of a tournament co-hosted by one of the countries that launched strikes against it. NBC's Monica Alva is at the White House. Monica, it was just over a year ago that the president, or last year, I should say, that the president was awarded the FIFA Peace Prize. So now we know that there's been some action behind the scenes to kind of smooth out the diplomatic crisis. Talk about the role the president is taking here and the specific message he's sending to Iran.
Yeah, Tom, you're seeing it right there on the screen. It is the president's very close relationship with the FIFA president, Gianni Infantino, that has played a key role in what we're seeing play out here, which, if it does happen, if Iran does indeed withdraw from the 2026 World Cup, there isn't really a historical precedent in the modern era for what that would mean to the tournament, which is being co-hosted by the United States, Mexico, and Canada. Specifically, we know that the president and Gianni Infantino met a couple of days ago here here at the White House. And after that meeting, according to Infantino, the president wanted to make clear that if Iran did want to come to the World Cup, that they were welcome to do so. Then fast forward to today and that message that you just talked about, where the president sort of called into question the safety of the players if they were indeed to come here. Iran, as you have pointed out, has said they don't plan to attend, but they haven't definitively announced that. And while we do know that FIFA, Tom, has certainly made some political considerations for teams in the past, what is really remarkable here is that you haven't seen anything like this specific situation. The fact that the U.S. is currently in conflict with Iran and the tournament is just 3 short months away really has just put tons up in the air. You can go back to 2022 when, certainly because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, they suspended Russia for that relevant tournament. But if you go back to World War II, even, the entire tournament was canceled in 1942 and 1946 because of the political upheaval. But since then, we really haven't seen anything that compares. And there's another aspect to all of this, which is what we're seeing in Mexico, one of the co-hosting countries, over concerns about security and the cartel violence there, though the Mexican president today did want to say that she feels everything is secure enough for the qualifying matches that are set to take place there in just a couple of weeks. Tom.
Monica Alba at the White House. Thank you. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day. It's awfully tough to read, watch, or listen to everything. So our bureau teams have pulled some highlights, and this is what they tell us is going down in the region. We call it the local. From our Northeast Bureau, a pickup truck speeding past a school bus stop in Maryland. You can see it there. The driver nearly hits a couple of children walking near the road. Police are asking for the public's help in identifying the driver. Thankfully, nobody injured there. Out of our Southern Bureau, deputies in South Florida got a peculiar, say this a couple of times, peculiar call. It was about a pig trotting next to the busy road. Now, as you would expect, officers gave chase, and they were eventually able to catch the runaway and take it to a local rescue farm. Tried to do a play on words, not sure it worked. Also, out of our Northeast Bureau, the red fox turned out to be quite the stowaway. He somehow snuck onto a cargo ship that traveled from England to New York last month. The fox is now in the care of the Bronx Zoo. Veterinarians there say the animal appears healthy after exams. They believe it's about 2 years old and will soon develop an attitude from the Bronx. Still to come from us, we're standing by for an update from law enforcement in the Michigan case of the attack on the synagogue. When it happens, we'll bring it live. But first, the lawsuit against a popular protein bar company. Why some customers say some David bars may not be as healthy as the company says. We're back. A popular protein bar is catching some flack with the protein maxine crowd. Now, you may have seen these at the grocery store, David bars. They list at 150 calories, but a new class action lawsuit alleges they pack many more calories than that. And that lawsuit accuses the company of, quote, unlawful and deceptive practices. Folks on social media are not happy about it, even empathizing with Regina George from the movie Mean Girls and her Cal-Teen bar crash out.
Mother! What the hell do you mean David protein bars have 300 calories?
The macros are a lie. They Mean Girls does.
Okay, so that's the social media reaction. The backlash got so intense, its founder had to say, quote, no one is getting Regina Georged, saying the confusion is coming from how the calories are being measured. NBC's Stephanie Gosk joins us now with this. So taking a closer look at the suit alleges it's double than the listed calories, right? What's the truth?
Right. It's really dramatic, Tom. I have a good example here. It's the cake batter bar, which is listed as having 150 calories and 2 grams of fat. But in actuality, according to this lawsuit and its testing, it has more than 270 calories and more than 12 grams of fat. So what's going on here? Well, I had a chance to speak to the founder, Peter Rahal, and this is what he had to say to me. Are people getting more calories than they think they're getting from David bars?
So the simple answer is no. It's a frivolous case where they were using the wrong measurement and method to measure calories.
So why are they using the wrong measurement? Well, he says a major ingredient in this bar is something called EPG, and that is a modified plant fat that is not actually absorbed by the body. 92% of it is not absorbed by the body. And without getting too graphic, Tom, it just kind of goes right through you, right? And so he says that the FDA does not require them to include that in the calorie count. And so when they did their calories, they did not. And he says because this lawsuit does, that's where the discrepancy comes into play. But he says that those extra calories are not being absorbed.
Okay.
Tom?
Did you sample a few just to see for yourself?
No, I decided to eat a hard-boiled egg, Tom.
Okay.
Because that's where
all
I
right.
like to get my protein.
See, you are
each
true
his
to
own.
yourself. Yeah, no, you are living to yourself. Stephanie Gosk, thank you very much. That's a wrap for us at this hour. The news resumes right now on News Now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.